I think it's time now to move to questions from the audience, but before we do, I just want to take a moment to give you a sense of how far we've come, despite the disagreements on the panel. In 1970, I was a math teacher at Chatham High School on the Cape, and I thought it would be a great idea to have an exchange program with Roxbury High School. If you know Chatham at all, you know it's pretty lily white, and next thing I knew, I was being investigated by the superintendent of schools, and I nearly lost my job for even suggesting that we have an exchange with Roxbury High School. So I like to think we've made some progress. And okay, questions from the floor?
You guys want to come up there?
Yep, if we could get Safira and Clay up, that'd be great. Yes.
Like her, I too, and many other people from the South that I know have horrible stories of relatives being killed because of their civil rights involvement. I myself lost my uncle, and he had his house bombed because of his involvement in civil rights. So we all from the South, if we're black, we all have those horrible stories. We all have a horrible tale. But I just can't seem to, and my disclaimer is I'm a staunch advocate of public education, because I've seen, after working in the system for 20 years, there's always going to be a need for public education. The gentleman talked about the lottery system. That can always be changed, but that's used as an excuse for why you can't take certain students. I know that because in my work, I received kids who were accepted through the lottery system by charter schools, but then were pushed back to public schools because what the explanation is, we don't have the services for you. And so I don't think the lottery should be continually used. I think it needs to be amended or changed. But I also cannot connect the dots from civil rights to charter schools and Dr. King's involvement or your husband's involvement. Because Dr. King, I don't think Dr. King or your husband would be advocating for profit schools for our children. I just can't see that. You know, Dr. King was a staunch union person. And the other thing that Dr. King, I think, and your husband would be upset about with charter schools is how they push out black boys, how they discipline black boys. I don't think they'd be happy with that. So I am sorry. I see two people up there advocating for my children. They don't look like me. I see two people up there advocating for the other children. They look like me. And that, I feel, is sad.
So let me just, if I may, about this whole question about charter school. Excuse me? Do you want to address the question, or you have a question?
We need to. Oh, yeah,
okay,
of course.
All right.
They
so,
can respond.
Yeah. So let me just be brief. I think I've seen you before at the Black Philanthropy Fund, and I would just disagree. I think that happens. There's a lottery system in the Boston Public Schools, and that's so we need to. I agree with you. Two wrongs don't make a right. But I would say to you that charter schools are not that. There are all these hedge funds running charter schools. Is there any charter school in the room that's run by a hedge fund? Please raise your hand. You will not see a hand go up. We raise. Do you want to ask the question? Why don't you ask the question? Because I think. That's Family for Excellence Schools. We don't. That's not the charter schools. I was a charter school leader for 19 years. I also was a leader of 17 years in the district schools in Brookline and Newton. So look at, we can have this conversation, this battle about hedge funds all day and all night. But I'm happy, and I want to be very clear about this, to take from the rich to give to the poor. I'm happy about that, and that's what we did at Neighborhood House Charter School. We did that, and we did that on purpose because we want our kids to have an advantage. So I just want to say a lot needs to be fixed. But as the woman just said, there's also a problem in the Boston public schools. And we have set up a compact of working with charter schools and district schools to work together to solve problems. That's the only way we're going to get to this.
I'd like to quickly say that we are here, my husband and I, and others like us, support all educational ways to reach our children. It happens that my experience has been both in the public school and the charter school. My husband and I support whatever school, whatever that configuration is, that reaches the least, the lost, and the left behind. I am here today because I'm hopeful that we're in a position now that we can put beside some of the crap, as this gentleman said, and talk about what really needs to happen to solve our problem, because I gotta tell you, I'm a little concerned about when I reach my rocking chair days and I'm in some nursing home somewhere, I wanna know who's gonna take care of me. And so that's why I do what I do. It is why we support public education, all of it. We want the good stuff. Let's create some good stuff together and stop fighting one another.
Next question? Yes.
Hold on. Sure, thank you. In some ways, it's a little bit of a statement more than a question, but I just want to say that I was born in the late 50s, and I have a disability. And when I went to school, children with disabilities, children who had emotional difficulties, children who were then called retarded, were put in one classroom in the basement of a school, and we never, ever, ever had a lesson. I started when I was 6. I left after 8th grade, and I had not had one science lesson, history lesson, math lesson. I learned how to read because I had older brothers, basically, who went to public schools. I grew up in Brooklyn. So I feel like I have a very fine-tuned sense of thinking about education. And I also want to say that my debt, the disability rights movement has just this amazing debt to the civil rights movement in terms of theory and action and all of that. And I went to college with affirmative action. I was not going to go get into college as basically an illiterate person without it. So my debt is huge. And I also want to say, though, that my critiques of public school are so long and wide, I don't think this room could fit it. And I also want to say that I think we have to get really honest here. Charter schools are dirty and messy and fraught with so many issues, as are public school. Yes, hedge funds. Yes. Yes, I'm not a teacher, I'm just a parent, worried about my child's education. That's how I got into this. Yes, black boys are pushed out of these fine charter schools and brought back to the public schools. And the attrition levels, you talked about some. What about Roxbury Prep? What about the Academy of Pacific Rim? The attrition levels are sky high. So I too want to, I don't want to really lift the cap, but I do want to cut the crap. And say that until we get honest about all of it, I agree, let's stop fighting. Let's get honest about all of this so we can educate our children in the way we do. And I also want to say, because I enjoy the way you speak. I just want to think, I too am worried about exams. There are public school parents worried about exam schools and advanced work and all of that. And I will climb aboard that also to look at how those issues are impacting poor and children of color in especially Boston. So.
I think we need to go to the next question.
I just needed to say, we need to cut it here, too.
Yeah,
Okay?
we thank you for your remarks. Thank you. You had a question, right? Next.
Sorry.
Oh, well, okay. It's fine.
Just make sure it's back.
Thank you. There is actually a question here. What I was curious about is, Would this dialogue change if in Massachusetts, charters had teachers who were members of unions? And I guess part two of that is, do people believe charters can do what they ostensibly want to do if their teachers were union?
Great question.
I'm sorry, what was the end of the question?
Well, whether charter schools could function with unionized teachers.
Then what did you say?
Well, essentially, you rephrased it, didn't you? Did you think that's a good idea?
I was just saying, would people be supportive? And if they're supportive, can charters do what people think charters can do, the good or the bad, if their teachers were in fact unionized?
Would they remain charters with the unionized faculty?
We actually do represent a charter school. We represent the Cape Cod Charter School, down in the Cape. And my national organization does organize charter schools. Obviously, from the perspective of a union, we like more union members. Okay, I will tell you, though, that the issues that we have identified with charter schools, those issues would still remain.
Well, let me be brief. I think it's about how I look at unions as a former union president. It's about the quality of life within that school for the teachers. That, to me, is the most important thing. And at Neighborhood House, and you'll find it where I ran that school, and many of the charter schools, they have quality of life committees where are made up just of teachers, where they raise the same issues about, and where they have their basically, because I believe unions should be localized more. That's where it should be, because each school has a different culture and a different need. So I really truly believe that they could operate within a charters.
Anyone else want to comment on that? Next question?
Yeah, I'm interested how the supporters of charter schools address, because I don't think you've addressed it head-on, the school-to-prison pipeline concern, which I know is one of the biggest concerns of the NAACP, the Advancement Project, and many other civil rights organizations. And I just have a quick quote here from the Advancement Progress, a civil rights group, that in several communities around the country, charter schools expel and suspend students at a dramatically higher rate than district-run schools, raising concern that they are intentionally pushing out children who might score lower on tests. These failing zero-tolerance policies lead to high dropout rates, lower academic achievement, students not getting the help they need, and too many kids pushed onto a pathway to prison. And I'm just curious how you respond to that concern.
I'll be glad, but I've been talking a lot.
This is a game of statistics, and here's why. We say that charter schools suspend kids more regularly than other schools. We also have to accept the fact that non-charter schools also suspend kids. And so if they both suspend kids equally, are we then okay? Short answer, of course, is no. The absence of a conversation about the prison to pipeline population, which is one that we should actually have, while we're fixing that, I'm not going to wait for us to get that fixed before I support charter schools and move forward. For me, it's not an or thing, it's and. As we're talking about the prison to pipeline population, we should also move forward with charter schools. And I can also give you statistics to show that there are schools that have actually taken kids who've dropped out. There's a charter school in St. Paul, Minnesota, taking kids who've dropped out, who've been suspended, and now they're college graduates. So it goes both ways. And NAACP, understandably, has not taken a positive stand on charter schools, but we often forget that the National Urban League does. And in fact, they've opened charter schools. So if we're going to talk civil rights, let's talk the broad coalition.
Anyone else like to comment on that? Okay. Next question? Yes.
Hi, I'm Lisa Geisbahn from Citizens for Public Schools, and we keep coming back to this issue of the lost, the least, the left behind, and how that affects the whole charter school discussion. And also this idea of, do we want to fight or do we want to stop fighting and all agree together? And I just feel like the fight is sort of baked into this whole setup. And I'm going to succumb to everybody's temptation to think about what Martin Luther King would say. I think he would really pinpoint this pitting of people against each other, pitting of regular public school people against charter school people, and pitting, black families who've been pushed out from black families who are still in charter schools. And I read this quote this morning from a charter school supporter, Michael Petrilli, who was referencing this issue of the exclusionary nature of charter schools. And he said, it's not a bug, it's a feature that charter schools are exclusionary of kids with disabilities and English language learners and kids who might get in the way of other kids' opportunity to learn. So I just want to hear what people think about this question. Is it a bug or a feature that charter schools are exclusionary?
Clay, do you want to?
Well, I've had a wonderful experience here kind of witnessing this discussion, because from the perspective of the rest of the United States, anyone who knows anything about education in Massachusetts, probably you could take the average public school or the average charter school and place them anywhere else, and people would be trying to get in. So I think in some ways there's this paradox of small differences of the way in which this issue has garnered so much emotion here, and I can understand the reason for that. But in the larger context, I would go back to what Barbara, I forgot your last name, but in any case, the larger issues that need to be addressed that perhaps are getting obscured by this argument. In the larger context of this nation, when we're talking about charter schools, we're talking about a different quality of discussion that takes place in California, and particularly in the South. It's really motivated by larger issues of distrust of government, of people wanting to pull their kids out of public schools. It's motivated by an anti-tax movement, which actually started in California as a political tool with the Proposition 13 movement some 40 years ago. It's motivated by racism, of a desire of white parents to not send their kids to schools that are we're not talking about majority minority, we're talking about substantially minority. So it's motivated by a number of large national issues that really have to do with inequality, that really have to do with the fact that, for better or worse, most black people who are middle class, or call themselves middle class, most whites who are middle class, believe very strongly that they are not part of the left behind. But when we look at it in terms of the entire economics of this country, a large segment of the people who call themselves middle class have been left behind. They are being squeezed. And I'm not talking about left or right, or look at the census data on the distribution of wealth in this country. We have a serious problem that people do not feel that they can pass on the advantages that I was referring to earlier about education as the engine of mobility, so that you can have the same experience that every generation of Americans up to this generation has had, that my kids will have more opportunity than I had and my grandparents have had. I can't tell that to my kids. my kids cannot buy the house that I'm living in. They cannot send their kids to the schools like the ones that I went to. That is true for a vast majority of Americans, white or black or whatever race. And that's the discussion that I think it's the elephant in the room that clouds discussions about issues of charter schools versus public schools. Because we know that we as a society have withdrew from that compact that we are going to provide those institutions of mobility to the next generation. And I think until we begin to just face that elephant in the room, that there'll always be a suspicion that something like charter schools are going to take money, the already scarce dollars that are going to public education, and make it less. And so I think that I would agree that we need to have that larger discussion, and maybe we can have another conference in which this is an element of that larger discussion, but I think that's what we need to do.
We have time just for one or two more comments, and
If
then
I can just say, I mean,
We'll have to
I
close.
certainly agree, but I do want to just pick up on the question that I think that to the degree that charter schools set up a two-tiered system, and in fact do take funds from public schools, that is counter to the possibilities of restructuring things so that there is more economic and racial justice. So I worry that it is built into the system, and I wonder why we don't just commit together to fighting so that every public school, every child has a public school education that includes all the things that they should have: art and music and time to play and creativity and teachers who have the time to do their work. Like, I am confused as somebody who is committed to social justice that our solution becomes to peel some off in a system where the injustice is built into peeling off. That's how we maintain hierarchies of injustice. So I am as confused as the first speaker about how that goes back to civil rights.
May I just, because I think we have to close, and I'm going to make this comment.
Just two more
And I'm
comments.
going to open invitation. So I invite, on behalf of Beth Anderson, the Vice President of the Charter School Association, I invite both the AFT and the MTA to sit with us and to have conversations and see how we can work together. I invite that, okay? I've sent out that invitation before. I see Paul Toner in the room, and Paul Toner came out and met with me when I was the president of the association, and we talked. So I invite that to begin conversation of how we can work together, but not at the cost of attacking and just putting down charter schools. If we truly want to work together, then I'm here on behalf of the Charter School Alliance in Boston and of the association. We're more than welcome to sit down with you.
Just 45
yeah,
seconds.
okay, 45 seconds.
Okay. Lisa's point, I actually want to flip it around about the regular public schools. They're inclusionary. Not that there hasn't been loads of exclusion approaches. For example, segregated schools, that's exclusionary. But they're inclusionary. If a kid comes from El Salvador in October or January or June, he or she gets into a public school. A severe special needs student, whether she comes in December or he comes in January or she comes in June, can come in to a public school. That is an extremely important aspect of the public schools. They are inclusionary.
Please join me in thanking our wonderful panel. I just want to say, as I've said, we need help in Florida, so I would invite any one of them to throw away their snow shovels and come to Florida and help us. Thank you.
I'd love to go.
So just a quick close. Thank you to Ray very much for moderating the panel. It's a great panel. Thank you very much to everybody. I think you all now know how Tom Birmingham felt as a state senator, with factions coming to him with different perspectives. One quick thing, a very quick point I think that is fundamental for Pioneer, though. There's a question about a narrowness to the topic. There's not a narrowness here. The reason for putting people together is our deep belief that we only make progress if we talk to each other. And that is why you'll see in a bunch of events that are coming up on the issue of civics. We have Amity Schlaze, an author who's in The Forgotten Man, on the FDR period. Tear down this wall, an event on March 26th with 3 Pulitzer Prize winning authors, Anne Applebaum, Edmund Morris, and William Taubman. We have also on May 4th an event which is called Never Give In, Never, 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 Teaching World War II in Our Schools, featuring more Pulitzer Prize winning historians, Rick Atkinson and David Kennedy. We have with us today, if you have a chance to see Diane McWhorter, there she is right back there. If you want to know anything about Birmingham, Carry Me Home is the book. The purpose of all this work is basically to talk about the richness of education, not just some of the governance things we talk about. It is a rich conversation that does not begin and end with charters, does not begin and end with vocational technical schools or METCO. So all of those are important schools of choice, but the topic is broader than that. And if we want to make progress and continue to make progress, we're going to have to stay on each and every one of those issues, and we'll need every one of you in that conversation. We'll need every one of you. Thank you very much for being here. There's a book signing here right afterwards.